Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christopher. This is Seerah Prophet. The cough was not involved. Oh no, is the cough bad luck? Uh-oh. Does that mean we're all going to die now? Get it? Because on the last one, you shouldn't associate things with being negative. The cough means good luck. And money. And a car that works. That's what that means. Yeah, we'll go with that. Here we go. It's a good luck cough. Let me knock this up otherwise. Okay. Apparently the cough was not good luck. All right. Oh, we're phasing in and out. What's this happening? So this video is sponsored by Yasin Muhammad. This is Seerah Prophet Muhammad 65, the Treaty of Hudaybiyya. It's Hudaybiyya. Or Hudaybiyya. You know what? It's one of them. Getting it wrong, is that a bad sign? Does that mean the world's going to end tomorrow? Ah, nerds. Or, it doesn't mean any of that, remember? Who remembers episode 3? I don't. Perfectly. Apparently. Click on that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out. If you want to donate to the channel and sponsor a video, click on the thanks, donate, tell me what video, and then I do it. All right, let's get into this. This is the final part. And then I got to do some car hunting. And I want to get a pizza. Those are unrelated, though.
How beautiful is this, right? You already have the dishonor of being the last group to convert. Now you want to add to this on your resume, the first group to leave Islam. And he played a major role in bringing them back to their senses. And he was the one who brought the governor out of his hiding and then basically reinstated him. And it is also mentioned that when they visited Umar in the Khilafah of Umar, that Suhail and Abu Sufyan and others, they visited Umar in Medina.
Okay, sorry about that. Text messages.
And when they went to the house of Umar, they found a line there. People are going to go see the Khalifa, right? And in that line are Bilal and Suhaib al-Rumi and Ibn Mas'ud and all of these that they consider to be low. And when the secretary comes out and he sees all the people there, so he calls number one in line is Bilal ibn Abi Rabah. And then he calls the other Badriyun, one after the other. And Abu Sufyan says to Suhail, I have never seen a day like this before. We are here. And we are, you have to realize who were these people, right? This is, if Quraysh had kings, these are the kings of Quraysh. These are the MPs of Quraysh, right? And who is Bilal and who are these other people? So Abu Sufyan says, I have never seen, and they're all now Muslim, but still, it takes a while to get to that stage. So Abu Sufyan says that I have never seen a day like this. We are here. And these abid, these slaves, and these, whoever they were, they have been given precedence over us. Now look at what Suhail says. And you see the iman of Suhail. SubhanAllah, where was he? Even in the incident of Hudaybiyya, how harsh he was, we will see. How harsh he was. But deep down inside, there was some good. And when eventually the Prophet managed to get to that good by the help of Allah, that good overwhelmed him. What did he say to Abu Sufyan? He said, I can see the anger in your faces. And there was a group from Mecca there. I can see the anger in your faces. But if you wish to be angry...
I thought he was talking to the group that was there that he was speaking to. I can see the anger in your faces. I was like, I don't understand why people are really angry. And then he says that, and I'm like, oh, okay. I thought people were angry. Okay. So, yep, I read that wrong.
Then be angry at yourselves. For they, Bilal and others, were called to Islam, and we too were called to Islam. Same time. They raced forward, and we lagged behind. And the blessings that they obtained in racing forward, listen to this, are far more than the honor of them entering the door of Umar before us now. You understand this point, right? In the eyes of Allah, the blessings they have by having accepted Islam are much more than now they're entering the door of Umar and then we're still waiting in line. Be jealous at that good rather than the good of entering the door of Umar. Imagine now, Suhail, we really see Iman from the heart of Suhail now coming, right? And then he told them that if you cannot catch up with them, the least you can do is to exert yourself in jihad fi sabilillah, so that at least we can try to come close. And saying this, eventually he basically signed up to join the army that was fighting the Romans in Syria, and he eventually died a shaheed fighting in Syria. And again, that's an amazing story of Suhail ibn Amr. Who was he? Where was he? And now what did he become? So out of the converts of the conquest of Mecca, Suhail is considered to be the most, or of the most, towards the most righteous and the most zahid amongst them. Now, he might have become a great companion later on, but right now he's still a bitter enemy. And the Quraysh have sent him to basically negotiate a treaty with the Prophet ﷺ, and they have very clearly told him, make sure whatever you agree to, that he does not enter Mecca this year. And that was the big condition. The Quraysh were willing to compromise a lot of things, but this one condition, no, for let not the Arabs say that he had the better hand over us. And what makes the matter even more personal for Suhail was that Suhail had two sons, and the both of them had given him trouble with Islam. And the both of them had caused so much dishonor to his family name. As for the older son, and his name was Abdullah, Abdullah has a very interesting story that we didn't mention in the Battle of Badr. Now I reiterate, I've said this many times, and no doubt, inshaAllah ta'ala, this seerah that I'm teaching you is, inshaAllah, perhaps the most comprehensive in the English language, inshaAllah ta'ala. But at the same time, it's not everything, because really that's a whole different level. And I would call it an intermediate level seerah. Advanced level means you go over every chain and which one is authentic and who said where, and that's really not suitable even in the English language, in my opinion. So not every story has been mentioned, and this is a story that I actually left it out in the Battle of Badr, and I regret having left it out because it is now relevant here. So I'll just quickly mention it here, and that is the story of Abdullah ibn Suhail ibn Amr. And very briefly, it's a very interesting story. That Abdullah ibn Suhail, he was a secret convert, and there was some tensions between him and his father, but he didn't want to go public with his Islam. And he realized that my father being who he is, this is going to cause big problems for me. And so he basically quelled it. He was trying to convert publicly, but his father clearly would not allow this, so he kept his Islam secret. So when the Battle of Badr happens, he sees an opportunity. What opportunity? To finally get to Medina. How? In the very army that is meant to fight Medina. Right? So Abdullah volunteers. Right? And he walks literally with them under their noses as a part of the army. And when they camp for the very first time and they can see each other, Abdullah basically takes his horse and sneaks away, and he joins the ranks of the Muslims, and he fights on the side of the Muslims at Badr against the side of the Quraysh. Now can you imagine the shame that Suhail had to deal with back in Mecca? Right? Can you imagine the criticisms? How embarrassed Suhail would have been in front of his, now he's the prisoner of war, and his son is now watching him as a prisoner of war in Badr. Right? Suhail is a prisoner. His son is on the side of the Muslims now. And this caused Suhail so much anguish, pain. This is his eldest. This is the firstborn. All the hopes, all the dreams. Guess what? When Suhail runs over to Medina, Suhail's younger brother starts talking of conversion. And clearly he is a convert. And Suhail's Abdullah's younger brother, Suhail has two sons, Abdullah and then Abu Jandal. And Abu Jandal is the one we're going to talk about right now. Right? Abdullah ibn Suhail and then his younger brother Abu Jandal. When Abdullah flees to Medina, Abu Jandal clearly expresses irritation that he can't do the same. He wants to, how come he went to go? He got to go, right? You know how siblings are all the time, right? He got to go, I need to go as well now. And it was clear to Suhail that Abu Jandal is a Muslim. Because you see, the same thing had happened with Abdullah, that Abdullah is trying to convince his father to convert, and his father is not converting, and so Abdullah basically says, okay, let's not convert. But it's clear that he is a convert now. You understand here, right? That there's the tension. And so Abu Jandal's Islam is now certain. So Suhail locks up Abu Jandal and tells the servants and slaves to torture him, throw him into the dungeon, deprive him of food and water, and he is chained since the battle of Badr up until now, the incident of Hudaybiyya. That's 4.5 solid years. The father has kept his own son in a dungeon.
Now, he's doing it because he converted, right? Or reverted, as some say. Well, yeah, or reverted, you understand what I'm saying? Or is it because he's trying to get him to change and give it all up? Or did he say it and I just completely missed it? I'm going to guess it's because he converted. One of the dogs whimpered. So I'm going to guess it's because he converted. So he's punishing him to make him change and, give it all up. Am I understanding that right? Or is it just because he's just punishing him and doesn't really care which way he goes?
Torturing him, telling him to worship the idols, basically the same thing that's happening, right? And he is refusing to let Abu Jandal go to Medina. He says, I've lost one son, I'm not going to lose both of them. Until you convert, then you will be free. And of course, they're not going to lie and say, okay, I'm going to worship the idol. They're not going to do that. They have the iman, they're not going to do that. So Abu Jandal has been locked up, and of course, Abu Jandal's story will be the one that we are talking about here. SubhanAllah, we're going much slower than I was expecting, but there's so much to mention. Let's just go for another 5-10 minutes and then let's call it a break. So Suhail then comes as the official delegate, and the Prophet ﷺ and Suhail, they agree to write a treaty, and this is the famous story. All of us are familiar with it, the standard story, and I will just narrate it to you for those who are hearing it for the first time. That the Prophet ﷺ called for a scribe, and Ali ibn Abi Talib was the one who was the scribe there. And so Ali ibn Abi Talib began writing down, and the Prophet ﷺ began dictating. Because Suhail has now come to negotiate a treaty, he's the one who says, come, let us write the sulh between us. Let us write the compromise, the treaty between us. So the Prophet ﷺ began dictating. And this shows us the assertiveness of the Prophet ﷺ, that he's not a meek leader. He's not somebody who's gonna, no, okay, let's negotiate, this is what I want. So every time he's saying something first, right? And this shows us as well. Suhail might have been Khatib of the Quraysh, but the Prophet ﷺ is far more powerful and eloquent than him, obviously, right? He cuts off Suhail, he goes, okay, let us write it. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So the Prophet ﷺ's forwardness is being shown here. As the leader, he's now going to negotiate, right? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And Suhail, as we know, he says, as for this phrase, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, I have never heard of it before. And I don't know who is this Ar-Rahman. Let us write it the way we are accustomed to writing, Bismik Allahum. Now again, this is a matter of ego, isn't it, right? What would Suhail lose if there were Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim? It's just a preliminary, the letterhead. What would Suhail lose? It's a matter of ego and pride. I want to show you who's the boss. I'm not going to compromise anything. Right? And remember what our Prophet ﷺ had said. And he said this publicly. And he said it publicly so that the Muslims understand what's at stake. He said that by Allah, no condition will the Quraysh ask of me. And that condition respects the signs of Allah, except that I will give them that condition. Basically, as long as bloodshed is avoided, and as long as the sacred, because bloodshed would be haram, meaning this is the haram. And they're not supposed to fight in the haram. In ihram, it's a major sin. So as long as they avoid any haram and bloodshed is avoided, I will give them any condition they want. As long as sha'air al-Islam and sha'air Allah are honored. So the Prophet ﷺ said, very well, write it Bismik Allahum. Now Ali had not yet written it down, so he says Bismik Allahum. So he says Bismik Allahum. Then the Prophet again took charge, and once again we notice he's the one showing who's the boss. And the Prophet said, this is what Muhammad Rasulullah has agreed to with Suhail ibn Amr. Okay, so Ali is writing, this is what هذا ما صالحه Muhammad Rasulullah. So this is what Muhammad, and he writes the word Rasul. As we know, this is the famous story. He writes the word Rasulullah. And by the time Suhail hears this, he says, as for you being Rasulullah, and this is very true from his perspective, Wallahi, if we believed you to be Rasulullah, neither would we prevent you from the Kaaba, nor would we have fought you, Badr, Uhud, Ahzab, right? Rather, write it the way your family, your people knew you, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Now again, this is major ego, right? Who cares what the title is if you really want a treaty? But this is a matter of his ego. Suhail wants the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims to know, we're not going to let you get away with anything. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Wallahi inni la Rasulullah. Wallahi, I am Rasulullah, even if you deny this. Doesn't matter, it doesn't change the reality. So write down Muhammad ibn Abdullah. And here is where one of the reports says, and this is definitely, there's nothing strange about this, even though it's not in some books, but it is in other books, that Ali ibn Abi Talib basically said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm not going to delete Rasulullah. I'm not going to delete Rasulullah. His own anger now got the better of him. That who does this man think he is? That I'm going to delete or I'm going to scratch out Rasulullah from this document. And so it is said, and there's again nothing wrong with this version as well, that the Prophet ﷺ basically took it and scrapped it out. Now, in those days you had leather to write in, and there is no whiteout. How are you going to take something out? You take a knife or you take something, you just basically rub it off, and then it's not going to be there anymore. And so it is said that with his own hand, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he basically scribbled it out. And this shows us again the humility of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It shows us the iman of Ali radiallahu anhu, that he said, and amazingly, by disobeying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's actually honoring him. Think about it, right? In this one case, by saying, I can't do this, I just can't. He's actually honoring the Prophet ﷺ, right? And the Prophet ﷺ didn't persist. He understands Ali's dilemma here, right? He didn't persist. I'm commanding you, who are you? No. So he takes it himself and he simply rubs it off, and then the document resumes again. And the Prophet ﷺ said, so again he takes charge, right? That the Quraysh will let the Muslims do Umrah. Notice again, he's always, subhanAllah, what do you expect from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He is no coward. He's not going to be quiet at the negotiation table. Every time he's the one forward. But Suhail, he's representing Quraysh. And so he says, as for this year, fala, then no. We cannot do this. Rather, that will be for next year. So khalas, that is it now. There is no compromise. That this year, you are not going to be able to do the Umrah, rather you will come next year. And then Suhail continued. So now the Prophet ﷺ, basically that was the main condition he wanted, to do Umrah, right? He didn't want anything else. He has no other condition. So Suhail basically improvised and he said, yes, you'll do Umrah, but that will be the next year on our terms. Now Suhail adds his conditions. And if the Prophet ﷺ wanted to do Umrah the next year, well, then you're going to have to listen to my conditions now. So what was his condition? That not a single man from us renegades or defects over to you, even if he be on your religion, except that you will hand him back to us. You see, Suhail especially has been harmed. His son is on the other rank, and his other son wants to go there. So Suhail wants this condition for personal reasons. And he also wants it because this has really traumatized the Quraysh. They have lost a lot of people in this manner, right? And the Muslims said, Subhanallah, what an unfair condition. How can we return
All right, sorry about that. Text messages.
anyone of the Muslims back to you, while he has come to us and chosen us? And a commotion began. How can we give this condition? And Ali did not write it because of this commotion going on. The Muslims' honor, their pride has been hurt. And probably a few minutes are dragging on. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills one of the most interesting and clearly melodramatic episodes of this year. There is no denying that this is the will of Allah, that right at this point in time, something happens that is simply so melodramatic and so difficult to stomach. This was a test for all of the Muslims, and that is Suhail's son, Abu Jandal. Clearly now, by the way, let's put a footnote here. Abu Jandal is trapped in a dungeon. But in the last 4 years, he's figured out a way to get out. But even if he gets out, where's he going to go? He doesn't have a horse, he doesn't have a camel. How is he going to get his way to Medina? Okay, you know, when you're trapped in such a scenario, you might figure out a way to get out. But then once you get out, he's going to have a chain around him. You know, all of the people of Mecca know him. What's he going to do? So he might as well just stay there. At least he's being fed and given some food and some water. He's going to die out in the desert. He has no way of getting to Medina. And realize, I mean, in those days, it's not just a matter of escaping from the dungeon. How are you going to get from Mecca to Medina? He has no money. He has no ride. The people of Mecca all know him as being the son of Suhail. What chance does he have? So he stays in his status quo. Now he's heard that for the last 3-4 days the Muslims are camped outside. He doesn't know his father has gone to negotiate. However it is, he finally manages to basically get out of that dungeon. He still has his chains, but he gets out of that dungeon and he flees, hoping finally to be protected by the Muslims. And while they're discussing, and clearly, as I said, the will of Allah Azza wa Jal to demonstrate this is something so clear here, that they hear the dangling of the chinging of the chains here, the clanging of the chains. And in the distance, they find Abu Jandal screaming out, Ya al-Muslimin, oh Muslims, finally, yes, I found you guys, alhamdulillah. He doesn't know his own father is sitting there, right? He doesn't know what is being discussed. He does not know that the very condition that is being discussed deals with Suhail and his own 2 sons, right? And Suhail turns to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, this is the first one that this condition is going to be applied on. And with that very melodramatic Shahrazad ending, we will have to pause and come back insha'Allah ta'ala next Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Oh, no. Oh, no. Is there... This is going to be... I'm not going to start it, but what I want to do is... Oh, my goodness. There's a 67? Okay. Well, let me see something. Well, I got to move myself now. Okay, here's the battle. Oh, wait a minute. This is Dr. Yasser again. Okay. Oh, he's wearing a suit. Look at that. So there's a couple more. There's 5 of these? Wow. Okay. Okay, well, let me go back.
Stock means what? The one who...
I like how it starts there. All right. Well, we're going to end it here on a cliffhanger. Hey, calm down. We're going to end it here, but I'm sure we'll end up finishing this. But until then, have a good day, have a good night.